Hi, y'all, and welcome to tonight's live stream. Well, Ashlee Buzzard has been arrested. She's the mom of the 9-year-old missing little girl, Melodee Buzzard. But she has not been arrested for the reason you might think. You might think that Ashlee has been arrested because she won't say where Melodee is or for what's happened, why Melodee's missing, but that is not it. Ashlee took her daughter on a cross-country trip in early October. Ashlee came back, but Melodee did not. And Ashlee firmly refuses to tell the police where Melodee is. Now, the race to find Melodee is on. The FBI has joined forces with the Santa Clara Sheriff's Department, and they are looking for her. Today, we had huge news that Melodee's mom has been arrested. Now, you might think maybe it's for trafficking the child, harming the child, but it's not. The reason she's arrested does shed some very disturbing light on the search for Melodee, though. We have a lot of new information about where Melodee could be, and a new question, finally, is there maybe a glimmer of hope that Melodee may still be alive? So let's dive into all of the new developments in the case today. So a quick overview, Melodee was supposedly being homeschooled, and she failed to pick up her assignment. She didn't report for what we've been told is an extended period of time to the school, so they called the police and wanted a welfare check on October 14th. Well, police got to the house, and Ashlee Buzzard, Melodee's mom, was not talking. She could not give them any coherent explanation of where Melodee was. They say she's uncooperative. So alarm bells went off. Police began looking for Melodee and found that Ashlee, the mom, had rented a car on October 7th. And the video surveillance at the area, at the place where she rented the car, showed Melodee with her. But bizarrely, Melodee, even though she was only 9 years old, was wearing a wig when they rented the car. At least that's what police think. You are going to see tonight a little clip of that, and you can actually watch the two of them in the car rental company. So Ashlee drove the car in just a 4-day period all the way to Nebraska and back. But when she turned the car in on October 10th, Melodee was no longer with her, and Ashlee won't say why or where Melodee is now. So special shout out to tonight's first five: Loretta Powell, Desert Rose, Villanelle's Boots, Camilla Juliana, and Dr. Go Duke Basketball. And if you haven't, would you please hit that like button and subscribe? We would love to have you back for more. So today, I want to go over the press release that we just got and talk about what we learned from it and what it means legally speaking. So let's take a look. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we are going to be looking at the press release. Let me go to the very first one. We're going to start with what happened today. And we're also going to look at a couple of older press releases. By older, I mean still this week, but we haven't had a chance to cover them yet. So detectives arrest Ashlee Buzzard on unrelated charges, search for Melodee ongoing. And they talk about the fact that they arrested her. And I want to focus on paragraph 2. Detectives learned of a recent incident where Ashlee prevented a victim from leaving a location against their will, which constitutes false imprisonment. This crime is not connected to the ongoing search for Melodee. However, detectives are unable to fully outline the crime as it would impede their ongoing investigation. On Friday, November 7th, 2025, that's today, detectives arrested Ashlee on a warrant for a felony charge of false imprisonment. She will be booked at the Northern Branch Jail with bail set at $100,000. Her booking photo does not meet the criteria for public release and will not be distributed. We'll talk about that too. Although this arrest occurred during the course of the missing person investigation, it is not directly related to Melodee's disappearance. Sheriff's detectives remain fully focused on locating Melodee and confirming her safety. All right, so let's pull out of that, and I want to talk a little bit about what that means legally speaking. Now, first of all, and this isn't legal, but it's really disturbing what it is that she was arrested for, because although it's unrelated, the topic, preventing a victim from leaving a location against their will, false imprisonment, that just still sends chills down your spine when you realize that the question about the little 9-year-old is that she's missing. And was this how Melodee was treated? Also instantly pops in your head. Let's talk a little bit about what false imprisonment is, legally speaking. We're going to have to I'm going to have to share a different screen with you. I have to have multiple screens so we can cover everything tonight. Okay, so let's see, this is what I want. All right, I'm choosing just a moment. Okay, there we go. Okay, so here is under California law, and I do not practice in California, and this is not any legal advice, but I looked up the statute because I wanted to talk to y'all about it. So this is what I found, that false imprisonment is the unlawful violation of the personal liberty of another. In other words, people have the right to walk around and to, generally speaking, move around. And if you falsely imprison them, you have violated their personal liberty, their ability to move freely. Now, look at that second area, though, 236.1, the second section down there. Any person who deprives or violates the personal liberty of another with the intent to effect or maintain a felony violation of, they name a bunch of sections, code sections, or to obtain forced labor or services, is guilty of human trafficking. And except as provided in subdivision C, they talk about how long you can be imprisoned, 3, 4, or 5 years. And if it's a child, the numbers go up. It could be 4, 6, or 8 years. In other words, there is an enhanced penalty if this in any way involves a child. So false imprisonment, just to sort of explain that in general terms, is preventing someone invading their personal liberty, but it becomes human trafficking when the restraint isn't just about holding someone somewhere. It's about holding them in order to exploit them. You're not just trapping them, you're trapping them for a criminal purpose. And the first kind that springs to mind would be the traditional thought of trafficking that we hear about there for a criminal purpose related to provision of sexual services. And a second primary type would be provision of labor, somebody being forced to labor. So the sentence is enhanced, of course, when it becomes a minor who is forced to do any of these things or who is falsely imprisoned for these reasons. So remember how I've been saying in some of our prior videos about how incredibly important the fact that Melodee may have been wearing a wig is, and the fact that we are about to learn tonight that Ashlee also apparently changed wigs on this route to Nebraska and back. The reason that that is so important is that shows an intent, that shows a disguise, a purpose to conceal Melodee, to conceal her. And that little fact could, depending on what Ashlee is charged with, if she is ever charged, could relate to intent. So we don't know enough to know exactly how that will play out, but that little fact is incredibly important because of what it shows about what Ashlee was thinking about as she and Melodee were moving in to rent the vehicle and then traveling across the country. So we do not get any details in this about the false imprisonment that Ashlee was arrested for. We didn't get that in the press release, but there is nothing in what was released about it involving trafficking, or about it involving forced labor, or even involving a minor. So it may be a fairly unrelated charge. I mean, we'll have to wait to find out. But at this stage, I just want to draw that distinction. Those are things that would enhance or would make this very specific for a criminal purpose. And we haven't been told any of that in the course of the press release from the Sheriff's Department. So, one thing you may be asking yourself is this a real charge, or is this just a way to keep her in jail? I'm going to go ahead and remove that so I can see y'all a little better. So, is it real or just a way to keep her in jail? The answer is probably both. It has to be real. And by that, I mean, there has to be probable cause to arrest her for the reason she's being charged. And she tried to, it can't just be that they want to keep her in jail because they think they may need information about Melodee or may be able to persuade her. It can't be just because. That would have to be probable cause to arrest her for something happening to Melodee. They haven't done that yet. So it has to be real, but the reason for it happening right now in the way it's happened and when it happened could be because they want to keep her in jail. It could be leverage to get her to tell them where Melodee is, or it could be to restrict her from moving. They may be afraid that she might flee. She has apparently tried to rent cars twice since the time that the police have learned Melodee is missing and have been looking for her. So they may be concerned that if they don't take action, she may flee the area. She may not be able to be found and they may miss out on finding Melodee. So it could be a way, and one purpose may be to keep her in jail, but it also has to be real in the sense that the charge has to be grounded, has to be based on facts actually believed to be true by law enforcement. So leverage itself is not disallowed. It's okay for the state to use that. It's permitted for the state to use that, but it has to be pressure for a real charge, not just a fake one, not one trumped up. They can't just throw her in jail and hope that makes her tell them where Melodee is. We can't do that in our country. So you may also be wondering, why are they being so incredibly cryptic about this new crime? And zero details, absolutely nothing. And they are going to have to reveal more than that, at least with the court, if not publicly. So there are several reasons. It could be that even though they don't mention it, it's related to someone who is underage and they may be trying to keep that confidential. Or it may be and they even say this, that they're in the middle of an investigation and they feel like something about this will prevent them from moving forward with it. Maybe they had to move faster than they wanted to because they were so concerned that Ashlee was going to flee. We will find out more details about that later, but for right now, what we can see for sure is that we're not getting the full story, that there's going to be more and we don't have it yet. You also may have noticed about their comment in there about how they are not releasing the booking photo. Now, that is very state specific. In some states, booking photos come out, they're published, there's nothing confidential about it. California has a special statute. Booking photos are considered to be embarrassing and humiliating information. Let me show you. I'm going to add this back to the stage and take you to the California statute on this. And it talks about a police department or a sheriff's office shall not share on social media booking photos unless, and there are some specific circumstances. Number one is that the police or the sheriff have determined that the suspect is a fugitive or an imminent threat to an individual or to public safety, and releasing or disseminating the suspect's image will assist in locating or apprehending the suspect or reducing or eliminating the threat. Let's say somebody escaped from prison, for example, and they need to say, be on the lookout for this person, and they have a mugshot for that person. This gives them permission to go ahead and use that. But there's nothing about Melodee that is a threat to public safety if she's in jail. That obviously she's not going to be out threatening the public because she's in custody. So that didn't fit and they weren't able to use that. The next one, a judge orders the release or dissemination of the suspect's image based on a finding that the release or dissemination is in furtherance of a legitimate law enforcement interest. So at this stage, no judge that we know of has done anything with the case, much less ordered the release. And there doesn't really seem to be any law enforcement interest in showing just the booking photograph of Ashlee. If they needed to do it in order, for example, to show the public one look she may have had in the course of what we hear is several different looks as she crossed to Nebraska and back. She was changing her appearance throughout that. So maybe at some point there will be a motion to release it for that reason. But at this point anyway, there's been no suggestion law enforcement thinks they really have an interest or a need to release that. And then the last one I wanted to show you is there's an exigent circumstance that necessitates the dissemination of the suspect's image in furtherance of an urgent and legitimate law enforcement interest. So there's some important reason it's needed. And again, we don't have any sense of that. So that's why they aren't releasing Melodee's mugshot, in case you were curious and wondering about that. Now, let's talk a little bit more about what the police have told us, what the sheriff's office has told us about their search for Melodee, because we've gotten new information over the course of the week, and that's leading us to know more about exactly how they're looking for Melodee, and even more importantly, where they are looking for Melodee, as well as some information about what exactly was happening as the duo crossed over to Nebraska and then came back. And of course, let me be clear on that. Melodee didn't come back. Only Ashlee came back. So let's take a look. I'm going to have to stop that screen and then go back to the other screen. And we're going to be looking at a little bit later. Yep, we're going to be looking at the November 3rd press release. Okay, this is an update. And as you can see, the police are saying, the sheriff is saying, we're going to focus on the October 9 travel route. This is important on numerous levels. This is telling us, first of all, that they believe Melodee was alive a lot later than we may have thought. Ashlee rented that car on October 7th, and she returned on October 10th without Melodee. Now, a natural assumption might have been that the furthest point at which she went is where she dropped Melodee. I mean, why would she drive all that way if it was for no particular purpose? But instead, they're saying they believe Melodee made at least part of the trip back with Ashlee. So here's what we were told, and we'll skip some of the part that repeats a little bit about what we already knew and what we've already talked about tonight. But let's start then with the third paragraph. Through their investigation, detectives have confirmed that Ashlee left California with Melodee in a white 2024 Chevrolet Malibu, initially bearing California license plate 9MNG101 on October 7th, 2025. Detectives believe that Ashlee and Melodee traveled as far as Nebraska with a return trip that included Kansas. And that's the part we had heard before, and there have been this focus on the furthest point and on Kansas. Beginning October 8th, 2025, the Malibu was observed with a New York license plate HCG 9677. Interesting, because not even the same state, the license plate has been changed. And why? Obviously a critically important question for the police. It is unknown when the plate was installed or whether additional plates were used at other times during travel. The New York plate seen on the car does not belong to the vehicle or to Ashlee. Interesting question, of course. Where did it come from? Whose plate was it? Who initially had that plate? Investigators believe it was used as a false or switched plate to avoid detection. When the vehicle was returned to the rental agency in Lompoc, California, the assigned California plate was on the vehicle. And notice it's more than just that the vehicle, that the license plate was changed. It's that it was changed across states and that the old one was put on before the rental car was returned. All of that the prosecution will use to argue that this was intentional, this was planned, All of this was in order to avoid being caught for whatever was happening. That remains to be charged. Detectives have now confirmed that Melodee was last seen along the return route via video surveillance on October 9, 2025, in the region between the Colorado-Utah border. Investigators are working to fill gaps in the timeline for that date and are working with law enforcement agencies in Colorado, Utah, Arizona, Nevada, and Southern California for assistance in reaching the members of their communities. Investigators believe the Malibu traveled through the following areas on or around October 9th, 2025. Green River, Panguitch, Northwest Arizona, Primm, and I should say the state since they're throughout. Green River, Utah, Panguitch, Utah, Northwest Arizona, Primm, Nevada, and Rancho Cucamonga, California. The sheriff's office is sharing a map of the vehicle stops and urges anyone in those communities to check surveillance and report relevant information. Detectives are seeking anyone who may have had contact with Ashlee or Melodee at any point from October 9 to 10, 2025, or any video footage from their route of travel. Obviously, the wonderful part about this is it suggests that Melodee was alive at least on the 9th, maybe even on the 10th. That's so critically important because it does two things. One, it gives us at least a little glimmer of hope. Is Melodee still alive? Is she still out there? We obviously hope for that. It also narrows down the amount of time that the police have to search. They can think how focused this is. They are saying these are specific towns. We want surveillance video in these specific places. It dramatically increases the chances that they will either be able to find Melodee or figure out what happened. And they've got, I'll go ahead and enlarge these. This is the map, and they show those towns marked with green stars so that you can see where exactly they believe the route was that was taken. And then this picture shows Ashlee and Melodee walking into the rental car company. And I want you to notice a couple of things. Notice that what they believe is a wig on Melodee, the little girl, is very straight black hair, which is unlike her hair. Her hair naturally is dark and looks a lot like her mom's in this picture, very, very curly, and therefore not straight at all. That's one of the reasons that the sheriff's office is suggesting maybe this was an attempt to change her appearance. But also notice what the hair of the mom looks like, which is probably I don't know about color, but that's probably the natural condition. That very kinky, curly hair is natural for her. That is apparently not what she looked like during this entire trip. Apparently she had different looks. We'll read more about that in the next press release. And they tell us a little bit about, they show these images and say and they are saying, and I should be clear on this, and both Ashlee and Melodee appear to be wearing wigs, with Melodee's appearing darker and straighter than her natural hair. So they think that the mom even is wearing a wig here. Now, I will say what she looks like here looked a lot like some of the photos that were taken as she was being arrested. It looked similar to me, which could mean she was wearing a wig when she was arrested, or could mean her hair naturally looks this way. Or maybe it's lighter. Ashlee Buzzard, and they talk about what she looks like being 9, 4'6", 60 pounds, and normally having brown curly hair and brown eyes. All right. Let me see. So I think the key takeaways from this particular press release are that changing license plate, that Melodee was seen later, and swapping of the wigs. Those are really important for planning, for intent. Like, these wigs went with them from the moment that they were even renting the car, before they had set out on this trip at all. There's already a wig on Melodee. So let's take a look at the next press release as well. which was November 6th, yesterday, in other words. And they go through the initial information again, and they say detectives are now sharing a segment of the video footage taken on October 7th, 2025 at a rental car location in Lompoc, California, and we're going to watch that. The footage corresponds to previously released still images and shows both Ashlee and Melodee wearing wigs. Investigators also believe that Ashlee swapped wigs throughout the trip, changing to a darker wig that is similar in color and style to the one Melodee was seen wearing. This change in appearance is believed to have been intentional to avoid recognition during travel. Obviously, very important for more than one reason. Legally, because of what it may say about the planning, the intent, but also in terms of law enforcement's task, they need to let the public know that what you see right here may not be what somebody looked like in when they were in Utah. It might have looked different in Arizona, because if she's changing her look, people need to know to look for something different. So let's take a look and watch that. We'll watch it a couple of times. I think it's 11 seconds or something, like 9 seconds. Okay. So you see the mom and is looking at her daughter. You can see kind of slowly, I'll stop it. That's about the best we have in terms of a look at Melodee. The mother turns away for a minute, and that's about all we have. We'll watch it one more time just so you can kind of get a sense. So we don't get much of a look because of the hoodie. And that's another issue, right? Because it's not just a wig, it's the hoodie over her head. So you really have a lot more trouble seeing Melodee. You don't see her clearly in this, but law enforcement seems very certain that it is, in fact, Melodee. And they talk a little bit about why they searched for her. And I want to read this little section down here. Through their investigation, detectives confirmed the following, and they talk about leaving California in the white 2024 Chevrolet Malibu and the California license plate. And then they believe they traveled as far as Nebraska with a return route that included Kansas. Beginning October 8th, 2025, the Malibu was observed with a New York license plate. The plate does not belong to the vehicle or Ashlee, and is believed to have been used as a false or switched plate to avoid detection. When the Malibu was returned, it then had the California plate back on it. And they say detectives have confirmed that Melodee was last seen on October 9th, 2025, on video surveillance in the region between the Colorado-Utah border. I mean, that shows you, too, how much work that law enforcement has done with the help of the FBI, how much they have done in following the trail. They've traced it all the way back. They now have video footage of Melodee on October 9th. We aren't told where. We're just told that they have the footage. And we're also told Ashlee's still not helping, still not cooperating with law enforcement. They tell us the same 5 areas of travel that we talked about, and I showed you the map on. The sheriff's office has released a travel route map, which we saw, and is urging businesses, gas stations, hotels, rest stops, and community members in these areas to review surveillance footage from October 9th and 10th, 2025. And they give lines that you can call. I've also got those in the description. So if you know anything, if you saw either Melodee or Ashlee or both of them, or someone who looks a lot like them, or if you have video surveillance, if you're in any of these areas and you have surveillance video from October 9th or 10th, you can call those numbers. Like I say, they are linked in the description, and you can take a look at all of those. All right. So critical pieces of information from here are the incredibly narrowed timeline, as short as 1 day now. That is the 24-hour period when it appears Melodee disappeared. And that gives such a greater chance of for law enforcement to be able to figure out what happened. The more they can narrow it down, the better shot they have at being able to figure out where Melodee is, what happened to Melodee. And of course, we do know that they are actively searching for surveillance video, which may give us information that we currently lack. So those are updates. I'm going to go ahead and remove this and we can talk a little better, but those are the updates in the case. Ashlee, as I said at the beginning, has been arrested, but she hasn't been arrested for anything related to Melodee. At this stage, we have not gotten any additional information about what exactly happened to Melodee, except we have a narrowed time frame and we have some specific locations where they're asking for people who may have seen her. But we don't have an arrest, nothing, no charge has been levied. No one has been blamed for doing anything to Melodee. Continues to be the case. She's missing, and now her mother is in jail on a different charge of false imprisonment. So if you have any questions, if you would put question marks at the beginning, we can talk a little bit more about that. I also... okay, Marlon wants to know and has been a member for 20 months, also one of our mods along with Mama Pinks. I'm so grateful to both of them. Asking, can you put the picture up if you have it? We see the press release in the pick and pick. I think that I can add this. I think that you were able to see it. Let's add this to the stage. I'm pretty sure I'm going to watch over here. Yep. You can see that. And then let's go back to this other press release. Oh, you're right. That doesn't show up. Okay. Share this tab instead. You were right. You were absolutely correct, Marlon. Okay, here is the photograph of the two of them walking into the rental car company. And let me go ahead and view tab in StreamYard. Not exactly sure what that means. If I stop sharing, oh, darn it. Yeah, it stopped sharing the whole thing. I don't know how you switch back and forth, but let's go ahead and get all those up because that's obviously pretty important. You want to see that. I think the most important one is the actual video when we see the two of them at the counter there in the rental car. That's by far the most important. But I also want you to see, I also want you to see, I don't want to do that. I also want you to see the one from the third. Let's see if that works. This map. That's what I want to make sure you see. So let's share this tab instead so you can see the map. Thank you, Marlon. I appreciate that very much. All right. So this is the map showing the 5 locations where they are asking for surveillance video, and they're saying they specifically want to know if anybody has any video of Melodee or Ashlee in this area. That's where they are concentrated. That suggests that their last video contact or their last video sighting of Melodee was at the very edge of that, and they want to know, was she alive? And if so, when did she disappear? Not just when, of course, but why? Where is she? Okay, so, excuse me. Thank you, Marlon. Great question. So I'm going to go back to where the questions were. But you're not seeing the, okay, well, hopefully we got all the pictures, and that was now something that we can see. And I know you can see the video because I saw you could see the video. All right. Excuse me. I think I better. Okay, there we go. Leslie, that's pretty funny. Leslie got her first gray hair at 16, she's saying. And so she got to pick, and now she's gone with solid white. There you go. I had a friend who once said, remember, no matter what you do to your hair, you can always do more. So I've always laughed at that. I thought that's pretty good advice there. Have they ever mentioned Ashlee's occupation? I have not heard that. really interesting question. I don't know that. That's from Susan. And I have not heard what her occupation is. Jennifer asking, is there an actual law that can force her to produce her daughter to law enforcement or face jail time? Well, there can be an order to her to produce her child or information about where her child is. And I believe they had one and they gave her 72 hours to produce that information. And she did not do that. But at the same time, they didn't arrest her. I wondered if they were hoping she would lead them to Melodee or why they chose not to arrest her. And they still have not arrested her for anything related to Melodee. And at this stage, we don't know that she'll ever be charged with anything related to Melodee. We're still waiting for the other shoe to drop. I mean, it seems to me likely that someone is going to be charged with something related to Melodee, but it's also possible that she dropped her off with a friend and just doesn't want to tell the police. Likely, maybe not, but it's possible. Something like that. All right, let's see if there are any more questions in here. Can a judge order proof of life for Melodee? Yes, a judge could order that. And as I understand it, she was ordered and given 72 hours to produce that information. Just didn't happen. Susan says that Lompoc is the home of a medium security prison. Well, that's interesting. Does she have a connection to the corrections department or to an inmate? And I've not heard of any. That's where she rented the car. And as far as we know, that's her only connection there, but super interesting. I didn't know about that. And a lot of people want to know if Ashlee works, and I do not know the answer to that. KP mentioned something very interesting. Just like Lori Daybell, there are some similarities. Remember, Lori Daybell was, Lori Vallow Daybell had 2 children who were missing. And she was ordered to tell where her children were, to produce the children for a welfare check. And because when they went to see the children, they weren't there. And Lori and Chad went to Hawaii. They were away. They had no children with them. Where were the children? Ultimately, we know a terrible end to that story is that the children were found buried in the backyard of Lori's new husband, Chad Daybell, and both have been murdered. That we hope is not the result for Melodee. I have some glimmer of hope that they think maybe she's still alive. I sure hope so. Sharon wants to know if Melodee is her only child. I don't believe so. I saw an interview with a person, I believe is an older child, an adult child of hers. And this adult child was saying that she had gone to the house to ask her mom, you know, hey, there's all this stuff out there, all these rumors, like, where's Melodee? And her mother wouldn't talk about it, wouldn't tell her that. All right. So thank you all for watching. We are going to be back we will be back next week, Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern. I hope you have a great weekend. I personally am super excited. Gibbs Gardens put out the Japanese maple alert. That's my absolute favorite time for Gibbs Gardens. I love Japanese maples, and they are turning this weekend, and I for sure am going to go see that. I can't wait. So I will look forward. I'll maybe have a picture for y'all on Monday so you can see how great they are. Hope you all have a great weekend, and I'll see you soon.